What's up, guys? It's Parallax Abstraction, and welcome to PXA Peeks at Rain World. Yes, we have another Adult Swim release. The train just keeps on a-rolling, and in typical Adult Swim fashion, this is another title with a very unique style to it, but this one's not hitting with me the way other Adult Swim games have, but we'll get into that a little bit. This comes to us from another small team called Video Cult. As far as I can tell, this is their first release. It does make a very striking visual impression for sure. Quick little thing with the options menu here. I don't quite know how this game's running. So my capture software says I am capturing a 1080p in full screen mode, but these are the only resolution options, and the highest one you can pick is 1366 by 768, which is a far shade less than 1080p. So I don't know if it's actually running in that mode. If you switch to windowed mode, it goes to a window that is that size, but I don't actually know if it's running in 1080p or not. It's kind of insane that it wouldn't be in this day and age. But anyway, that was a little strange. You can play with the keyboard or a gamepad. The game supports both Xbox controllers, Xbox One and 360, as well as the PS4 DualShock, which I thought was pretty cool. So yeah, you can do that. I am actually going to be playing this with the keyboard because I actually find playing it with digital control is the better way to go. I find it's more responsive and your character is more easily controlled that way. So here we go. Yes, indeed. So you are in the rain world, effectively, and you're playing this adorable little scamp here, which is called a slug cat. And I mean, it's kind of fitting when you look at him and see how he moves. And the story is very minimal. It's told with no dialogue. You are separated from your family at the beginning of the game in a massive flood, and we'll get to that a little bit later. And your goal is to try to get back to them, I presume, and to survive along the way in this. This is a world that I assume is a post-apocalyptic world where humanity once lived, because as you can see here as we go around, it is a very industrial-looking, desolate place. There's no humans in it, and the world is pretty screwed up. Basically, every certain amount of time, a torrential flood of rain comes down that is so torrential that it basically drowns all life. And the only way you can survive it is to hibernate through it in certain particular places that have the means to be sheltered from the rain. And that's kind of the core point of this. So this is pitched as a survival platformer, basically. It has very minimal survival elements. This is not like an Ark or a DayZ or something like that, far from it. And it is definitely very heavy on the platforming components of it. And it has kind of a neat concept, which we'll get into here. As you can see, this has a very interesting art style to it. The developers say it was inspired by platformers of the 16-bit era, which I presume, they mean like the Genesis, Super Nintendo, things like that. This definitely looks like something that could have come out on that. If I were to equate it to something most accurately, I would say this is something you would have seen on a platform like the Amiga or the Atari ST, something like that. It just evokes that sense of style to me. Not a bad thing at all, don't get me wrong. Those machines had some very stylish, very eye-catching games on it. And it's not procedurally generated. Every screen in here is unique, and the game actually boasts over 1,600 unique rooms spanning 12 diverse regions. Which is pretty impressive. I mean, it's pretty big, at least environmentally. And it's clear that would have taken them an incredible amount of work, so I find that to be very impressive. Adult Swim games, as I've said a million times before, you can always count on something with the Adult Swim badge on it to have an incredible sense of style all its own, and that is absolutely the case here. So as you can see here, your main idea is to walk, jump, and hop your way around through these different environments, and every environment has some of these little passageways in it. You can see by the little indentations in the environment where they're going to take you, and you kind of go through them. It's like you turn into a little piece of electronics or something when you go through there, but it's kind of interesting. So the ones that have arrows on them take you to a different point within the room that you're in or within the environment you're in. The ones with those 3 dots, there you go. They take you into a different room entirely. You also have that little yellow guy up there who's kind of like a little guide. It's interesting. The game doesn't explicitly tell you where to go, but that guy will give you just a little bit of help. If you watch him, he will kind of nudge you in a direction that you might want to go. You don't have to go the way he says. One thing that's very cool about this is it's very open. It's not linear. You do have certain places where you have to go to progress, but you can definitely approach things in different ways if you want, and in different orders. But if you follow this guy, he'll probably do you right, And what he's pointing me to there with that little symbol was he was saying that there is food this way. So this is where the survival elements come in. The only thing you have to worry about is food. And to get food, you either eat bugs that are in the environment, which you have to jump and catch, or you can get these fruit things. And I presume later in the game there'll be other ones as well. We're pretty early on right now, and I haven't progressed very far before doing this video, and I will get to why after. There we go. So I grabbed them. So what you do is you eat these. Do that by holding down Shift, at least with the default key bindings. So you see that little meter there, right? So in order to hibernate, you need to have a minimum of 4 food saved up. If you have less than that, you can't hibernate. If you can't hibernate, you can't escape the rain when it comes. The rain is on a timer. So also, here's this really rad map system. I think the map in here is just amazing. Like, look at the way this moves and this sort of pseudo 3D perspective it has. I think it's just awesome. And as you can see there, see that little symbol there with the little break in it, that's a hibernation spot. So where I woke up from when we continued there, that's what those spots are like, and they're around here. And you have to have enough food when you go into them in order to survive the rain. If you don't, you will get flooded out and you will die. Now, there is a penalty in this if you die, and the penalty is actually rather interesting. So when you hibernate, and I'll attempt to show you what this looks like if I either die or can get to another spot where I can hibernate. But if you hibernate, you have these sort of symbols. You'll see what I mean. It's very hard to explain, but you have these sort of symbols or runes, and every time you hibernate, you gain one of them. Every time you die, you lose one of them. What the heck? I don't know. I don't know what's going on here. I've never seen this before. I don't know. Well then, that's news to me. I actually hadn't seen that before. So yeah, okay, so there are the symbols there on the left side. Now you can see I'm at the bottom. Every time you successfully hibernate, you gain one of those symbols. As I understand it, what you need them for is to progress into the later environments. In Rain World, you need to have those symbols raised to a certain level for certain doors to open. If you don't have them, you can't progress. So you have to keep coming back. You have to wake up, go get food, hibernate, and keep the symbols going up until they get to the point that you need. Every time you die, you lose one of them. And there are occasionally in certain environments a little shield item you can pick up that will give you it's kind of like an extra life. Basically, hi, how you doing? How you guys got? Yeah, what's going on there, bro? Yeah, so they will give you a shield, which means that when you die, you will not lose one of the symbols. And as you can see, there's predators in the world. Oh yeah, so those weird things that grabbed me and pulled me down, those are predators. I'd never seen them before. I have seen these guys before. These are these weird sort of crocodile abominations. And they will sort of traverse the landscape randomly, but they do have the ability to both see and hear you. So you can sort of stealth your way around them if you're careful. But whoops, I screwed that up. But if they notice you, they'll try to come after you. Now, there are different variations of those. There are other predators as well, but having not gotten past the first area yet, I haven't seen any of the other ones. But there are different colors of even those guys. So far, I've seen the green ones, the pink ones, and the purple ones. I actually don't know what the purple ones do in particular. The green ones are pretty stupid. They can't climb anything. They can't really... all they can do is traverse the ground, and they can try to jump up and grab you. The pink ones can climb things, and the blue ones, I'm not sure what they can do. But as you saw there, these guys are... they're pretty random in terms of how they move about the land, and they are also not each other's allies. You know, this is very much a kill or be killed world. These things will distract themselves if there's more than one in the environment by fighting each other, and you can use that to your advantage in order to get away from them. It's an interesting balance. If they grab you, you can sometimes get away from them, but if they kill you, it will go game over, and it's actually kind of horrible because you can see them actually move and carry you back to their lair with your lifeless corpse in their mouths, which is kind of screwed up. But this game very much has a feeling to it, not unlike something like Limbo or something like that, where... So there's one of the bugs. You see I picked them up. So you see how he kind of reaches for them? It's kind of elegant in its way, right? Because it's not very complicated how you get them. The bugs will try to avoid you, but he will sort of reach for them automatically, and all you got to do is jump in their sort of general proximity. Hey, what's up, bro? You just got to sort of jump in their general proximity, and if he passes by them, he'll grab one, and then you can eat it. It's very neat. You can also pick up objects and throw them. At least at this point in the game, you can't kill any of the enemies. But you can use objects to distract them. You can either... No, you don't. No, you don't. There we go. So yeah, you can use objects to distract them and to sort of tick them off and whatnot. But yeah, you can't kill them. Oh, and here comes the pink one. So this guy can actually climb up. You see, they're trying to figure out how to... It feels very procedural. They're trying to figure out how to get at me within the confines of the systems that we have, and bollocks. Yeah. And here we come to the crux of the matter with this game. It's not for me. And I seem to be in the minority among that with this game's fans. The reviews of this on Steam are very positive at time of writing. This game is incredibly hard. Now, that is not out of character for games published by Adult Swim, as you know. And you know that I don't dislike hard games, not at all. I mean, I really like Desync, another Adult Swim game that is unbelievably tough. The problem with this one is that it's a very long game in general, and it's hard in some really mean ways. The fact that you can spend a whole bunch of time, you know, hibernating, going out, getting food, getting to where you need to go to be able to hibernate potentially several times, and then get killed unexpectedly by some bad piece of RNG, like randomly spawning enemies that, like these guys here, that will sometimes appear in areas and sometimes not. It just feels unfair to me. Now, it's something that the developers actually are very aware of, and they kind of revel in it. You know, this game, the message that they are trying to send in this game is that they call it an existential game. It's a game very much about surviving in a harsh environment that is stacked against you, where you are not the lowest rung on the food chain, but you ain't far off. And it's a game very much designed around trying to survive in that environment and trying to outwit things and to, frankly, in many ways, teach you that life isn't always fair, I think, is really kind of the message this sends. And they have said straight up that this is a game that is very challenging to the point of being unfair sometimes, and that's part of their shtick. There's a lot of people who like that level of challenge. I find it a little bit punitive and just not very fun. You know, this is a first impression series, but I really didn't want to be this little into the game before I recorded it. I've spent time... Damn it! To hell! You see what I'm talking about? I have spent a good amount of time trying to just get myself to the second area so that I could at least see what the next spot was about, and I could at least go, okay, you know, we're getting a little bit further into this and I can show more of it. But I've just constantly been bashing my head against the wall, and sometimes it's my fault, but sometimes it's very clearly the game's fault. You know, though I said that it does play better with the keyboard, I don't think it controls especially well. I think your character is not very responsive. I think it frequently doesn't do what you ask. I've had so many times where I had a jump that I know I lined it up right, and then it just didn't quite jump the way it should have consistently. And I just go, well, I just screwed that up. That's great. And you're on the constant pressure of a timer. You know, as I said, when you run out the timer, some crazy stuff happens. Let me demonstrate that to you. Check this out. Yeah, right? Stuff gets real really quick in this thing, and this game will kick the living crap out of you for in a number of different ways. You know, if I didn't have the timer aspect of it, if I could go, all right, you know, I can pace myself these really difficult platforming challenges that sometimes will fail due to the game not playing nice or not controlling well or things like that. I could live with that if I could spend the time to go, all right, I'm going to take my time. I'm going to plan this route. I'm going to work on my jumps. I'm going to practice, and I'm going to get good at this. That would be better. But you can't do that, because if you take time to practice, you're probably going to get screwed. So you see, here is, I believe this is one of the gates to the next area. So you can see there's those symbols up there, right? You can't see what the other symbols in the line are. But yeah, so you can see this room here. It's marked on the map. So yeah, that is the symbol that I need in order to progress to the next area. So I know where that is, but yeah, so you can see I came over here, and it's like, nah, man. So, but that's the problem. The game doesn't give you, you can't practice. You can't really spend the time to get good, because if you do, you're gonna die, because you're gonna run out of time. And you have to be constantly watching the clock while you're also trying to do these difficult challenges, and it's too much. I think it's really just too much. There's clearly an audience for this. Most of the people on Steam who bought this, you know, there's plenty of people in the forums complaining this game's way too hard, it's ridiculous, but its fans are reveling in it. They love how hard it is. They love that it kicks your ass. They love that it's frankly unfair in a lot of cases. Ow. Also, yeah, fall damage at least isn't really a thing, so that's all right. And there's a pink guy who just showed up. Lovely. So, clearly, these guys knew what they wanted to make, and clearly they understood. I don't know what I got for that. I didn't seem to get anything for that. And you know, clearly they understood what it was they were making and who they were making it for, and I'm all for that. But I don't think this is very fun. I don't enjoy playing this. It feels like I'm fighting the game more than I'm playing it. And it just feels like a game that doesn't respect my effort as a player, I guess is the way I'd put it. And that's not even a good way to put it, because this is a game that pitches itself as being extremely difficult and being about being unfair. You know, they understand that core elements of this game do not play nice and do not play fair with you, and that was by design. That was their intent, was to show you, listen, the world sucks, man, and this post-apocalyptic nightmare fest sucks way worse, and you're a creature that probably doesn't really have any right to exist in this environment, and your goal is to prove everything wrong and to survive in a world that is not meant for you. There's a strong message in there, to be sure, and being a mechanics-focused gamer, I like games that can convey a story and a message through gameplay rather than just considering gameplay secondary to telling their hoity-toity narrative. And that's cool and all, but at the same time, what I always say is that a game has to be a good game first. Anything else, your story doesn't matter if the game surrounding it is not good, in my opinion. And I love the minimalist. Okay, so here's one of the little shield flowers, so you'll see what happens here. Not that it matters, because I don't have a symbol to lose, but there it is. So there's the shield, but that maintains. So if I go and hibernate now and go up a level, that shield will still maintain for the next time, which is nice. But those are very few and far between, and if you don't know how to find them reliably, you can't count on them for sure. So yeah, I mean, this might have been more interesting in a co-op setting. I could see if you were playing this with another player and you could maybe help each other out, and maybe one could save the other one from death or something like that. Like, you know, if a creature catches you, one could, your buddy could maybe fight them off or distract them so that they drop you. That would be kind of interesting. But again, I understand how that would kind of take away from the existential message they're trying to send with this about overcoming impossible odds. It takes a lot of that urgency and tension out if you have another person involved. I think the type of game they were trying to make here probably only really works with one person at it, and I could appreciate that, but it just feels like this game is arbitrarily difficult and mean, and for no... Oh, am I full of food? I guess I am there. I do love how clumsy these alligator guys are. Like, they just kind of flop around and fall, and they're like, duh! Like, they're clearly very dumb. So you see that little warning that came up there? That's the timer saying, yo, you're halfway here. You know, at about this point, you should probably start looking for shelter lest you get pounded by the rain, as you saw before. And you can check that at any time, to be fair. You can bring up your thing here, and you can do that. But that's the problem, is you have to be so cautious. And apparently, like, this is the first area. Apparently, the game gets way harder from here. There is literally a section in the game, and I don't know if it's optional or not, but there's a section in the game where your little helper buddy will actually always actively try to steer you away from. And there were people complaining in the forums about that because it's so hard and so punishing. Like, this is just the beginning of it, so you can only imagine with a game as much content in it as this one's saying, just how viciously hard this can get. And I've said it before, you know, I'm the guy who actually did come to like Dark Souls, but I like Dark Souls when I summon people constantly. You know, I play games like Neo, summoning people constantly, because I'm not into bashing my head against the wall endlessly to get good. I understand there's a huge amount of satisfaction in that. And that may very well be the case for some of you watching this. If this is something where you can be like, yeah, I'm going to spend $20 and I'm going to bash my head against this game for hours and hours, and I'm going to revel in the feeling of satisfaction that comes from getting good and overcoming that challenge and going, yeah, I spent hours and hours trying to get enough symbols in this area to move on, and I did it, and absolutely, good on you. And you know, in many ways, I think you might be a more enlightened gamer than I am if you can find a way to enjoy that, because I love games that have cool mechanics and that base their design around those mechanics first, and that's clearly what happened here. It's just, I don't like games that feel like, you know, where you stepped up and paid money for them and they, oh, yeah, how you doing? I don't like games where you have to step up and pay money for them and feel like you're paying to be punished, where it's a game that that feels like it's talking down to you, or feels like, you know, that you're... So here we go. So I've got enough food, so I'm going to go hibernate in here. You'll see what happens. I don't know what all this mechanical stuff is. I don't know how any of that works. Maybe it gets explained later. I really do love some of this art here. The intro to the game is done in this very nice cartoony art style. I think it looks really nice. Like, I think the art in this, for the aesthetic they were going for, is actually quite striking. I think it's very nice and something you don't see very often. I think they really nailed the era that they were going for. So you can see there, I got another symbol and it's shielded, so now I can die or get drowned by the rain and I won't lose it this one time. So that's nice. And now I can go back on the hunt. And you go on and so forth. And you see here's the map drawing out. I do love that effect. I think that's really slick. I think this map system is very, very cool. As you can see, I discovered a fair amount in here. And once again, I'm only in the first area. I don't actually know what those blue pings are. I think that might be food. But I honestly am not certain about that. So, but you see here, he's going, yo, there's bugs this way. So we go down here. You see, he doesn't always appear. Sometimes you have to sit and wait for him to show up, and then wait for him to sort of lean in the direction where he's like, hey, you might want to go this way, you know, and he won't always specifically tell you why, you know. Sometimes he'll be like, hey, you might want to go this way, and he won't say because there's bugs there or because there's a save point there. He'll just say, hey, you might want to, you watch his head and he'll just be like, hey, you might want to go that way, you know. It's very elegant. And it's a very cool style. See, look, there's a helicopter corpse down there, so you can clearly tell there was some kind of humanity here at one point, and it's really neat. I get what they were going for. I get why this is cool, but I just don't think it's fun. I have been so frustrated and spent so much time. And there's the music. So you haven't heard a lot of music so far in this. This game does have a soundtrack. It only kicks in at certain points. The soundtrack, like most Adult Swim titles, the soundtrack can be purchased separately, of course. It's very minimal electronic. But as you can see, it really adds to the atmosphere. What the hell is... We're seeing new things all the time. Hi, how are you? I've never seen that before. I think that's him flagging it as an enemy. Yeah, I got that. That thing looks creepy as hell. It looks like a really long-ass centipede. Hang on, I want to see if it does anything to the alligator. Oh, it doesn't? Man, I wanted to see that thing get tied up in there. That's news to me. Like, I've been through that room a billion times, and I've never seen that, but well, not a billion times, but I've never seen that before. At any rate, so, and you see it's throwing new stuff at you on a regular basis, but there's a lot of randomness in it. There's a lot of, you know, what is often referred to as RNG, or random number generation, which is a fancy way of saying sometimes you're going to get screwed by math and randomness, and there's nothing you can do about it. And I just don't find that entertaining. I don't get as frustrated as easily as I used to, but I still do, much more so than some people. You know, some people will revel in the challenge of that, but in many cases for me, I'm just like, oh, screw this. You know, I'd rather go play something that doesn't punch me in the face and go, yeah, you like that, don't you? And that's kind of what this does. I think it's very well made, though technically, especially with the resolution thing, seems a little weird. I think it's a very cool idea they were going for, but like most Adult Swim games, this is very much not for everybody. You have to like platformers. You have to like platformers where the controls can be very hard to master, and you have to like games that have a point to their challenge, but are extremely challenging to the point of not only being unfair, but reveling in it. That is absolutely what this is, but it doesn't sell itself as anything less, and that's why I still respect it. If this was pitching itself as something that it wasn't, I would have a much bigger gripe with it. Idiot. I would have a much bigger gripe with it. But it knows what it is, and they don't hide that. So you've got to like it. Got to like that kind of thing. If you do, I suggest giving this a look. I think you might very, very much enjoy it, and I hope you do. But this is absolutely not for me. I don't see myself playing any more of this once I'm done. Once I'm done with this video, I have a lot of other games to play, and I would rather play ones that are challenging but reward practice more than this one does, because you can spend hours practicing in this game and still get completely screwed over by a random number, and I don't find that fun. So. But that's me. You know, clearly there are a group of people who love this, and I have nothing but respect for those people. I hope they enjoy it, and if it looks like you would, then I definitely suggest it. So yeah, that is Rain World, developed by Video Cult and published by Adult Swim Games in 2017. We are playing the PC version. It is also available on the PlayStation 4. It is approximately $20 US. Seems to be a lot of content in it. If you can bear the challenge, I can imagine you getting many, many hours out of this. Certainly not necessarily a bad value proposition, but you gotta really like the hard stuff if you're gonna dig this. Thanks for watching, everybody. If you liked what you saw here, please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel. That does help me out a great deal. If you want to watch something else, check out the videos on screen now, and don't forget to follow @PXA Media on Twitter to find out about new stuff first.